Thank you. Good morning and welcome to the September 19th, 2024 regular meeting of the Town of Bethlehem Industrial Development Agency. We are meeting as we always do in Bethlehem Town Hall. We are also always webcasting, although we very much appreciate when people come in person to see our meetings. September 19th, 2024, I do want to recognize unofficially, it is International Talk Like a Pirate Day. It is by no means required that we participate, but appreciate the sentiment.
Okay, I'll talk like this.
So following our written agenda, the first item is a call to order, roll call and confirmation of quorum. We do have a couple of guests this morning, regular guests, so I will ask everyone to go around the table and introduce themselves. And it looks like we're going to have a quorum, but I will officially confirm that after the roll call.
I'm Catherine Hedgeman, Executive Director and Agency Counsel.
Dick Cotlow, Treasurer, Board Member.
Chris Walsh, board member.
Victoria Stores, Chair and Board Member.
David Cadera, Board Member, Vice Chair.
Al Michaels, CFO. Victor Franco, Board Member.
I'm David Van Leuven, I'm a guest on the town supervisor.
All right, on time.
Yes.
Jackie Hope, President and guest.
Good morning, John McPhillips. I'm a guest, Chief Business and Financial Officer for the Bethlehem Central School District.
Welcome. Counting 5 members, I confirm that we have a quorum and open this meeting officially at 8:21 a.m. The next item of business is to review and approve the minutes of the regular meeting on August 28th. That's in the packet for members and published on the website. Are there any updates, amendments, questions, or discussion about the minutes?
Just one minor one for the minutes themselves. I think the minutes should reflect the actual vote that occurred. So whether it's 5-0 or 5-0-1 or whatever the case might be, so that we can accurately reflect if there is any, anybody who abstained,
Okay.
So on and so forth, even though the motion passed.
Generally speaking, because we live stream and the video is available, we had streamlined the minutes to not be all that long. I can do it, but sometimes we don't do a roll call. You know what I mean? We just do an aye. So we can put a sentence or two in there if it's unanimously passed or something like that. Okay.
Yeah, I would recommend that. But again, keeping it brief.
Sure.
I think we can achieve that.
And I think Victor also mentioned that he was excused for the last meeting, which is true, so I will edit that. Yeah.
A no-show board member.
Is there anything else?
No.
Okay.
I'll accept a motion to.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous approval of the
Yeah,
minutes.
okay.
Did you catch the motion in the second?
Dick moved and David seconded. Okay.
Thank you. The next item of business is the financial report, followed by the presentation and discussion of the 2025 budget. In terms of order of business, I do want to mention that the budget will be presented. We will have the executive director report and communications, and then move into actually approving the 2025 budget. So I'll turn it over to Al.
Okay, you have the financial report through August 31st, 2024. Statement of net assets, we had a total cash position of $1,802,616.86. Other current assets and prepaid expenses of $2909.21, giving us total current assets and total assets of $1,805,526.07. Our liabilities, we had accrued expenses of $18,033, leaving us with a net asset position of $1,787,493.07. How we got there, year-to-date, revenue, total income of $205,875.88. Expenses, contractual expenses of $103,019.45. Business and economic development expenses of $16,051.78, giving us total expenses of $119,071.23. Add back interest income of $33,624.05. We've got a net income for the year of $120,428.70. We compare that to our budget. You can see we're under budget for the fee income simply because the one project we thought we might have didn't happen. We budget for a project every year. Some years we have more than one, some years we don't. This year we haven't had one. On the other side, though, our PSEG energy reimbursement is running $41,233.62 above budget because of some changes in that the extension of that project. On our expense side, contractual expenses were $55,1944 over what we budgeted. And business and economic development, we're $81,000 under, although we're starting to spend the money on the one project, so that variance will close. But year to date, we are $63,236.05 ahead of what we budgeted. Any questions or concerns on the financials?
Good job as always, Mike. CFO.
I'm looking at our packet and I want to draw everyone's attention to the fact that the proposed 2025 budget was not in the PDF. It was sent separately as an Excel workbook, and I want to make sure, because I printed one copy.
I have another copy if you need it.
I have mine on my screen.
Okay.
Everybody's okay with that? Thank you.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay, we had two finance committee meetings to go through the budget. The budget which will be proposed this morning has been approved by the finance committee. For 2025, we have budgeted operating revenues of $247,140, made up of project closings budgeted an estimate of $25,000, application fee estimate of $11,500, annual fees of projects $13,033, pre-22 annual fees 2022-2023 project $117,000, and energy reimbursement from PSEG of $80,000, which totals $247,000. From those, some of those fees we're working on continuing through 2020, past 2025, but the PSEG as it stands right now ends in 2025, but hopefully it'll be continued. We don't have a project on the books right now, so the $25,000 is a place setter which we've had every year. We've also budgeted investment earnings, which are CDs of $60,000. This morning we went through our depository banks, and as we've known, either our deposits are fully collateralized above FDIC or we're below the FDIC, so everything is in compliance with our investment policy. That gives us total revenue of $307,140 for our budget for 2025. For expenses, we have service contracts, the town of Bethlehem, which we went through in detail, budgeted at $45,000. Insurance, budgeted at $6,500. Professional service contracts, which is our executive director and counsel, $95,000. A professional service contract for our CFO, $15,000. Our audit budget, special counsel budget, I'm sorry, our special counsel is $7,500, which we may or may not need. Our audit budget is $4,500. A new item which we're going to be discussing after this presentation is professional service marketing and promotional, 15,000. And other service contracts, $5,000, for a total of service contracts of $142,000. Other expenses, unless they total, the biggest one is the continuation of our survey study, and we have a laundry list of different expense items, which unless somebody wants, I don't think we have to go through item by item. Good, thank you. So that total expenses of $306,000, which as we come down to the bottom line, we've got a net income of $440. So in all intents and purposes, it's a break-even budget. I think we spent, with help from our chair and the committee, I think we're pretty good at where we are, and if anything, the chair of the finance committee thinks that it's conservative. But so that's where we are, and that's our proposed budget. Any questions? So you're not going to approve it now? You want to approve it after? Is that what you said?
Right. Yes.
Okay. So if there's no discussion, we'll, as Madam Chair said, we're going to approve it with a resolution in a little while. Thank you, and thank you for the committee for your diligent efforts.
There is one thing that I want to point out, is that we are required to provide 3 years forward-looking estimates. This isn't something that the committee was able to spend a lot of time on. So that's in there. There's notes about what was held steady, such as our fees, what was increased, supplies and materials, accounting. And I want to say very publicly that these, the estimates for 26, 27, and 28 are not official budgets. They have not been approved by the board. Any amounts in there will almost certainly change because we approve each budget annually, and these estimates are for estimate purposes only and do not represent a commitment by the IDA to make any of these expenditures or an expectation that this is exactly what we're going to receive. I also do want to point out there are a couple of things that the Finance Committee talked about very thoroughly when we had our meeting. One of them was based for Kate's contract for executive director and council. The increase is based on the discussion that the board had on the August 28th meeting, where she is taking on additional responsibilities that used to be undertaken by special counsel, who is really no longer monitoring IDA legislation and things like that. Certainly we can discuss it here, but I do want the full board to know that the Finance Committee very thoroughly talked about what that would mean. We also very carefully reviewed the services contract with the town, and we are leaving that steady. We have not had the services of a senior economic developer since April, and don't expect to have someone in place really before the end of 2024. So we're very carefully balancing so that we get to a balanced budget, what services we receive from the town versus what we are paying. And everything else I don't have anything to add to Dick's thorough explanation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that's the presentation of the budget. We will move it, next item of business, executive director report.
Okay, I included also a second spreadsheet in Excel, which was a list of the projects that Al had produced. I just wanted to draw your attention to that and just see, if you had any discussion or anything you wanted to talk about on that. I really, other than the report, there really isn't much those are the ongoing projects and some that we had previously. So anybody have any questions on that one? because I know that you had asked for projects, a list of projects and an update on that. So with that being said, I'll just move quickly into the industrial site project update. Rob, Leslie, myself, and I think Victoria are meeting tomorrow to discuss briefly the status of that project. The engineers have identified a bunch of different sites that we're going to take a look at and dig deeper into to see what the development possibilities will be for those sites. And once we have a finalized spreadsheet of what those are, I certainly should be able to share that with you. And the consultant will probably also come to a board meeting or present virtually one way or the other here in the next couple meetings that we have before the end of the year. So that project is still in process. We're still in the information gathering stage. And I know based upon Rob's emails, he wanted them to look at a few other parcels that weren't on the original list that they produced. So we're going to give them time to do that. And once, they are able to come up with what those properties are and tell us potential for development, the other piece of it is, who owns it and if we need to get access to the property to get further information. But by the end of this, we should have a good inventory of the industrial sites in the town, whether they're developable or not. So, senior economic developer, I know last week Rob conducted a few interviews. I have to circle with him and see what his thoughts are on those candidates, and if he intends to move forward with anyone. I haven't talked to him since then, so I'm not sure where he's at in that process. I'm trying to think of what else. I think that's it for my report, because we're doing the motions after, so.
And there is nothing listed under item 6, old business. That would bring us to new business, item 7, which is the budget, the website contract, and the modification to a pilot. So I will turn this.
Yeah, what we really need is just a motion to approve the 2025 budget. So you want to move for that?
I don't think I can move.
Okay.
Thank
Okay,
you. A second?
David, second?
Not on the finance committee, maybe?
Right, as second.
Second,
Okay,
Victor.
all in favor of approving the
We'll
2025
vote
budget?
against it.
Aye. Any abstentions or nays? Okay, unanimous approval of the 2025 budget. Thank you.
All right, so the next item is the motion to approve the contract for the website and social media. It's really a statement of work. It's not like, official commercial contract, but it's what she uses. I had put that in your packet. And I think if you want to make a motion to approve and then you can discuss, that would be great.
So moved.
Okay, Dick? Second, Chris?
All in favor?
Any discussion?
Oh.
Any questions?
And I apologize because I know you guys discussed this in length at the last meeting, which I wasn't present. But the intellectual property that is either created by them or, provided on the website, who owns that?
We do.
Okay. And that's explicitly stated in
The
contract?
The content generally is owned by the person or the company that purchases it. I wouldn't call it intellectual property. I don't think it's content, I think is what you're getting at. Videos, written content, that kind of a thing, we would own that. But she produces it at our direction. Intellectual property, I don't think we we would really have anything that would fall into that category that we would ask her to create. Be one thing if she was creating the software for us or creating, something like that, that we would want to, protect that, but but I think your question is on content, right? And what
Right,
she's
yes,
producing.
thank you for the
Yes,
clarification.
yes.
Absolutely. And then, what about, if in a worst case scenario, they either fail to perform or just all right out, fold as a company. Would we have, the keys to the kingdom, if you would,
Passwords,
right, passwords,
DNS.
stuff that they can't lock us out of our own site?
Yes, so the contract, because it's month to month, is 30-day notice to terminate on either side. But yes, the constant contact account and the social media accounts that'll be created are owned by us. She would just have access to produce the content onto the sites.
Yeah, and I only raised this because it's like 3 or 4 years ago, there was an issue where realtors hired a Facebook company in order to do their content, in order to keep their things live. And then all of a sudden, this company went rogue and started locking those people out of their own accounts. So I just, again, that's totally a worst case scenario, but I didn't know if that was contemplated at all, or if there is a way to make sure that we remain in the driver's seat.
Sure. So, I've seen it where companies, it's their pages, like they own it, they set it up, and then they use it for that particular client. Here, these are our accounts, so I will have, the logins, all of that. And the way she doesn't work with any client that way. The clients always own those accounts, even if she sets them up for us. So, we would own that. But if you want, I can ask to put in something that says that. Very
something to make
simply.
it explicit.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up, and that was really a good point, Victor. This whole website, even though it's very important to us, is a regulatory requirement. Is it worthwhile stating, to follow up what you're saying, in the agreement, that they understand that it's a regulatory requirement, and that we're fulfilling our obligation, and that's the reason why we have to have everything proprietary to us? I mean, you know what I mean, Kate? We're required to have this. It's not by choice. So, maybe we can lock them in some way that they're part of the regulatory process. I don't know.
Do you mean along the same lines as Victor's, that
Yeah,
we
that-
would own the content?
It's following up what Victor has said, but it strengthens it a little bit that, they're working as our agent for regulatory purposes.
As a consultant myself, I would balk at that.
Yeah, I'm ultimately, responsible for compliance on the website. And what would be posted would be at my direction. So policies, all that, right. So, I mean, this particular consultant works with other public agencies, so she's, she understands what it's there
That's
for.
fine.
But yeah, I mean, we own the content, I think. We can definitely put in there, and it should not be an issue because we would anyway.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
we can do that.
Yeah, Kate, you put that very well, and my immediate reaction is, as a consultant, I would not want to be held responsible for my client's regulatory compliance. It would probably wreak havoc with my directors and officers' insurance and things like that. So, thank you, Kate, for explaining why it's not necessary to put someone else on the hook for our responsibilities.
I had that forever. That requirement.
I'm sorry?
I had that requirement forever.
Well,
Well,
Yeah,
it's a different,
I know.
yeah.
We could recreate the content. The thing that I care about is just, can we get the passwords?
Right, I mean, there are accounts, but they're managed by her. Like, she's gonna set them up, but then I'm gonna have to go in and give her access as an administrator, essentially. But there are companies that do run it in the way you've given the
Yes.
example, and you have to pay attention to that because you won't, if they create little videos or whatever they're doing for you, you cut them off, you don't own that anymore and they take it. That's not the case here.
Other than some typos in the proposal.
You want to send those to me?
Stop going on vacation.
She may quit before she starts, but,
More plane flights.
I just have a quick question. Under the structure of the agreement, is there any requirement for face-to-face contact? A lot of this looks like she's gonna do everything over the phone, or she's gonna be setting stuff up remotely. Is there any human interaction between the board and this phone,
the board,
us? And
what would you need, what would you
well,
want?
I mean, that's requiring a couple of in-person meetings just to
Well,
confirm
what
what
we-
she's doing, she's actually
Sure,
doing, and
sure.
things like that.
So what we could do, and we already discussed, we probably would meet at least once a month, if not every 2 weeks, depending upon the amount of content that's going out, her and I. But she certainly can be invited to a meeting, absolutely.
I like that.
And I believe she sits on one of the planning boards in one of the towns, so she gets it. So I forget what it is, but she's out somewhere. I forget. The Sticks. She'll laugh if I say that, but yeah. But yeah, I will ask her
It
maybe.
doesn't have to be monthly, but if she could meet with the board,
Yeah,
once a year.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let me just make a note on that. Okay, so with Victor's proposed language and Dick's proposed language, should we approve?
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Victor. Second. Thank you, Chris. All in favor of approving the contract for the website and social media?
Aye.
Any abstaining or opposed? The motion passes unanimously for the contract for website and social media with the new board. Now, since I'm going to be out of the country and out much of the day tomorrow, Kate, if this needs to be signed while I'm away, our secretary may or may not be available. Who's next after me? who can
I've
sign?
brought an entire folder of documents for you to sign before you
Okay.
leave today.
Yes, I did.
It
say
is
I
my
would leave
first
them-
day on the job, but
Leave them in signatures
Might
in
be taking
escrow
it.
with our attorney. Thank you, Kate.
I'm gonna make you speak like a pirate. All right.
Okay,
Yes.
next, still Kate.
All right, so here's the fun part. So let me go back just a little bit of history so that it's on the record. As you recall, you as a board had approved a First Amendment to the PSEG pilot, and that extended that pilot out to 2020, September 2025, or no, March 2025. We received correspondence, and it's in your packet, from Generation Bridge. Just pull it out here. And they reminded us that within the original pilot, and of course the amendment refers back to the original pilot, there was a clause in the agreement for what we all call a bonus payment. And that bonus payment would be triggered, and it never has been triggered within the 20 years that we've had this pilot until now, where if they reach a certain capacity of output, there would be additional taxes paid to the municipality. So in the letter, they go on to explain that they've reached that capacity. and that they believe there's an amount of $810,000 due to the town for taxes, portion of which, a larger portion, roughly 650, would probably go to the school district. And they had written and asked, because this is something that they've never faced before, and also because they weren't prepared for this to happen at the end of the year when they had already approved their budget for this fiscal year last year, if it would be permissible to make the payment due by January 30th, 2025, so that their new budget for next year that they're looking at approving now would have that expense in there. So that is the request that was on the table. And originally, I think the thought process was that it would come to you and you could just approve it. But what it really needed, there would be no legal authority to just approve that, and that taxes wouldn't be due in the normal course, meaning September 30th, but that we would have to amend the pilot agreement so that the payment could be made by January 30th, and therefore would not incur penalties or interest. So that being said, I think I'll stop there and just take any questions. And then before you move to approve it, Victor and I agreed on some little changes we want to make. So I'll put those on the record for that.
I'll start the discussion by saying simply for background for the members that Kate and I, David Van Leuven, John Phillip from the school, and Rob Leslie had a lengthy discussion about the ins and outs of this that backs up the recommendation and documents the case together.
I'd add, just as working with PSCG, they've been very good over the years on our projects. And this is something they self-reported. I don't know that I would have, I know, I checked the calculations they give us every quarter for our fee, but I didn't go back to 2002 to know this language. So I think it's pretty good on their part, but they saw something and self-reported a liability.
Mm-hmm.
If we can work with them a little bit to help them pay that, I think it's a good thing.
Any other?
I just confirm this is not a property tax. This is whatever they.
Yes, it's a
Virtually,
bonus
it's a
payment.
bonus.
So they'll make their regular payment if they haven't already by September 30th when it's due. This is was something that was negotiated by the previous director, that if they reached a certain capacity level, that we would get more taxes because it's more revenue to them, right? So it's almost like that sliding, like we're going to take a piece of your success, for lack of a better, I think there was some surprise on their end as well when they looked at the numbers and said, wow, we actually, hit this clause. So, this is really the administrative action that we need to take in order to legally approve moving that payment, because the agreement originally said it normally would be due by September 30th.
Mhm.
So that was sort of I don't know if oversight's the word, but because it's not the usual tax payment, we could have from the get-go said when it was due versus the regular schedule. But for whatever reason, we didn't. And from what I understand, the history of this negotiation of this pilot went on for months before it was actually, maybe even a year or two. You might know better.
I heard a horror story. I mean,
Yeah.
It was, I came on it 10 years after it happened, and I think the wounds were still, not wounds, but it was a big project, and I think it's worked very well.
Very well for us.
I don't know any other towns that have a 3-stack power plant on the streets. It's a unique asset.
And the intent too, with any new agreement that we would arrive at, we would attempt to close this loophole up front, because just as a company, it doesn't necessarily fit within their fiscal budget for that year. And, rather than, because of the ongoing relationship, because they're going to put in a new pilot application, I think they felt that they could come and ask us to do this so that it, would be a little bit easier on them to have the expense in 25 versus 24. Just because they simply hadn't planned for it.
Right. And because it's a pilot agreement with the IDA, the town and the school district do not have to be signatories to any agreement or anything like that.
That's great question. The answer to that is no, they don't. But Victoria and myself, as she mentioned, were very transparent, and we had a meeting with John and David to let them know, we were looking at doing this, and they did not object. So, and I wanted to also make sure that this was all on the record, so it was transparent for anybody that, was wondering what we were doing here. And of course, the new agreement will come to all of you again, to look at and to see what you want to do with that. So I fully expected that we'd get an objection to $810,000. So.
Oh, yeah. So
Any further comments, questions,
I was
concerns?
looking to rough
I'll
I will.
entertain- I'm sorry, Dave.
No, we'll find out.
So if this happens again, we'd have to have a new letter, new agreement. Since the date here is January 2025, it's not.
Right, so we,
Subsequent January or something like that.
right, we're currently under the extension. So we are doing a second amendment to change the language, and I'll get to the language in a second because we are going to massage that a little bit. The extension is still currently in place. It ends in March of 2025. I was talking about when they come forward with new terms, we will address this issue too in the new pilot. Because I'm, I don't want to assume too much, but it's going to be similar in structure, I'm sure, and that this bonus payment is probably going to be in there as well. So we'll take care of it from the get-go and not have that issue again. So Victor and I had a little chat prior to the meeting about some changes that we wanted to make to the resolution itself, and then of course to the agreement. So the first one was really to define original company, and the first pilot defines it and the extension defines it, but it's not defined in this resolution, so we'll remedy that.
Okay.
It'll read the same as the previous and who the original company is. Thank you, Editor-in-Chief. And then the second amendment would be to change the language of, or on page 3 of the resolution, paragraph 3, it says, whereas the agency has received correspondence from the company dated September 3rd, 2024, which requests that the agency, we're going to change the language that says waive any penalties and interest to read, that the agency will change the date the payment of the amount due under the agreement is to be made. Because technically, we don't have the authority, nor are we really waiving penalties and interest. We're just moving the due date. So great suggestion. And then finally, it was in the agreement, right, Victor? Yeah, it was. We would change the language in the agreement to read the same as the resolution, that we're changing the date the payment is due there under and when it'll be made. So it'll read the same in both. Okay, any other discussion, question? Did I get everything?
I believe so.
Okay. Any other discussion, thoughts, questions? Okay.
Shall I entertain a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Dick. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Chris. All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstaining or opposed? The motion passes unanimously.
Just for the record too, I wanted to acknowledge and introduce Jakeen Hoke, who is a current applicant for to become on the IDA board. So he is here today just observing, in case anyone was wondering. Hopefully you can say hello after the meeting.
Welcome. Thank you.
All right, so that was new business item number 4. If that ends new business, item 8, future meetings. Our next regular meeting will be held Wednesday, October 23rd. Same time, same place, although we'll be back to 8 o'clock unless the finance committee, having had so much fun meeting at 8 this morning, decides to do it again.
Yeah, there are some meetings.
And the next item, if there's no question about meetings, is I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Chris.
Second.
Dave, all in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Any abstaining or opposing? Thank you. This regular meeting of the IDA is adjourned at 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 19th. You are all free to talk like pirates again.